Hey guys, Brian here back at the Vice. Today we're going to tie a 32nd ounce jig that I like to call the Busch Light jig. It's a white 32nd head, just a normal gold hook. We're going to take black thread and start wrapping it down the hook. Good tight wrap. We'll get about 1/4 inch, and we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut that trim end off. Just like that. Now we're going to wrap her back about to the point. And then I'm going to take my whip tool. I'm going to just put one quick whip knot in it. Just like that. Now what I like to do is I like to wrap up about halfway back up my thread wrap. So the tail product is a kind of like a bucktail hair. This is a little bit thinner than what I normally use, so it kind of gives it a different look. Gives it a real small profile, but the tail's real long. This is probably one of the longest bucktail jigs I tie. So we're going to grab a nice little chunk of it, and once I get that little chunk cut off, I kind of hold it up there and figure out my length. I'm looking something about like that. So I'm going to take and cut that off square so I don't have a bunch of access towards the head. Once I get that all cut off, I'll kind of hold that up there. Just double verify. Looks like I need to trim off just a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to take this and we're going to give it a couple loose wraps on here. Once we get that loosely wrapped, I'll kind of take my fingers and pinch it around the hook and pull her tight. And then I'm going to wrap about to the point of the hook, and then I'm going to wrap back towards the head. And we're going to secure this all down nice and tight. Try to get all the ends of that bucktail tied in tight. That's what really locks this bucktail down, is getting between all the individual strands on your tag end there. And we'll wrap back towards the head here. And as you can see, it's kind of a thinner tailed jig, just like your uncle that shows up every family picnic and is way too drunk off Busch Light, a little thin in the hair. We're going to grab some Pearl Flash here. I'm going to take my strand, cut it in half, and then double that over to make a loop. Then we just take that loop and put it over the head. And I kind of hold it down on the side of the body. And I just start wrapping back kind of towards the point of the hook. I like to have it separated just a little bit here, just to kind of give it a little bit more dimension. Now I'll wrap that back to the point of the hook, and then I'll wrap back to the front. And I'll grab my other half, and I'll do the same thing. Just kind of double it over to make that loop. Put it over the head, and then wrap down the opposite side of the body. And I like to wrap back just a little bit ahead, and then I'll grab my body, chenille, whatever you guys want to call it, and I'll lightly wrap that on there, a couple wraps, and then I'll start putting tight wraps on there, get it back as far as I want to get it. Usually I try not to go past the front of the hook point. And I'll get that wrapped in there real tight, and I'll hold that out of the way on the vise here. And I'll reach in, I'll grab my trusty old super glue, make sure the tip's clean, give myself a nice kind of even bead across the top before I start wrapping the body. Once I get that on there, I'm going to take my body and I'm going to start wrapping it. I always go over the top and under, and you want to keep some constant pressure on this so it doesn't come loose. And I'm going to wrap this all the way up to the head. I'm going to take my thread and go around it. 3 wraps around the head. I go around my body material again. 3 wraps around the head. And then I always do it 3 times, just to kind of lock it down, a little extra security. I'm going to trim off that body material as close as I can without getting into my thread. And then I usually like to give myself a couple wraps, try to get that tag end down just a little bit. Now I'm going to grab my whip finisher, and I'm shooting for somewhere between 5 and 7 whips. There we go. We're going to pop that whip finisher off of there. We're going to give her a good little tug. I don't like breaking it off. I like cutting it off. I think it looks cleaner and keeps the thread more intact. Now we're going to come here to our flash, and we're going to kind of cut that back. If you take and slide down the flash, you have less of a chance of cutting the hair. I like to cut it shorter than the hair on these jigs, just to give them an extra couple strands, just a little bit more action on their own. I'm going to take my Sally Hansen hard as nails. Oh, better straighten this out a little bit. There we go. Now I'm going to take my Sally Hansen hard as nails. I'm going to wipe all the extra off the brush, and I just want to put a dab right where I terminated that thread, kind of where the body material and the thread are both terminated, kind of lock that together, make it a little bit more watertight right there, and that's about it. If you guys like these tie-in videos, go ahead, subscribe and like, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you guys.